was a game on Friday night that I have to say, I think Arteta and the boys at Arsenal had it in their heads that they didn't want a repeat of game week 1 last season when they lost out to Brentford. Going away to Palace was potential banana, but they got the job done, right?
Mate, it's such a difficult place to go. Like, what an impressive result. 2-0, Selhurst Park. Like, for an Arsenal team that we thought might have weaknesses, well, what a way to start the season. And Arteta started that football match like a Man City team. Like, I can't help but think everything about what Arsenal are doing is trying to do a City. Like, the manager has obviously spent a couple of years with Pep as his number 2. And we're starting to see that. They're so fluid in attack. And even the signings, he's gone and bought 2 of City's good players in Zinchenko and Jesus. And you look at Saka and Martinelli, these guys wouldn't be out of place in a City team either. So you look at it and you're going, yeah, he's going to be Pep 2.0, this guy in Arteta. And I just like what Arsenal are doing. They're going to be a real force this season. I think top 4 is going to be really interesting with them now in the mix. But look, Jesus so highly owned, and it was Martinelli and Saka that got the points, but I've no doubt Jesus' time will come, right?
Well, what did you make of Jesus? First of all, are you a Jesus owner? Because you've got Haaland and Kane. Have you got Jesus as well?
I do. I've gone big up top.
Heavy up top.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm happy with that, knowing that I'm now going to probably be needing to move some of those funds around the front line, knowing Mitro and Darwin are now options too. But yeah, all 3 of those.
Not panic stations for me, though, on Jesus. I don't know how you're feeling about him. I thought he looked lively, looked sharp, bringing in other players into the game. So despite the blank, I still feel okay with having him in my team. I mean, what is it? He was 76, 77%, something ridiculous owned for game week 1, which was a record as far as I'm concerned for game week 1 in FPL. Incredible. So I don't know whether we're going to see the mass exodus that we might have done, because a lot of FPL managers are going to be looking at Haaland, and there'll be some other priorities that FPL managers will want to look at. But what do you think? Do you think you're going to see a lot of the community kind of getting off of Jesus, or are we going to see some patience?
I would like to think you give him time, like Leicester, Bournemouth, Fulham and Villa. Like, the next 4 fixtures, like, you can't beat that. So you have to give him time. But there will be some managers that are getting twitchy and going, oh, that's a similar, I could save money and go down to a Mitrovic, for example. But no, you have to give Jesus time. There's a reason you bought him. Keep the faith. And what we saw from Arsenal is they're creating lots of chances. The front 3 has already clicked pre-season. And now the fixtures are there. Jesus is going to score points big. I'm sure of it.
It's so tempting, though, isn't it? I even did a draft this morning before I came on, and I took Jesus out and put Darwin in. Here we go, with the red goggles, the Liverpool fans coming on the podcast. I was like, but I can't bring myself to do it. The fixtures look too good. He only had 1 shot in the box at the weekend, which was my only concern, was that here we go. Here's a player that looked lively, passed the eye test for me. I mean, despite no FPL points, I like to watch the highlights and see whether, he actually had a good game. And I think that he did.
Yeah.
But when I look at the underlying stats, only 1 shot in the box. So I'm kind of looking at, well, I'm probably going to keep Jesus, but I'm also very happy that I've got Gabriel Martinelli in my team.
Yeah.
And those that have got Saka as well should be pretty happy as well. So if you're on the double up, if you've got 2 Arsenal attack, I think that's okay as well, by the way.
Yeah, I do. I saw a few drafts with 3, which does seem a little bit heavy. But at the same point, I can see the argument for it, because their argument was, look, I've got Jesus is the best striker at his price point. Martinelli at 6.0 is the best midfielder at his price point. And then many said Saka at 8.0, there's not a better 8.0 in the game. But, it's hard to argue with that. Although we did see, we should move on to Spurs, we did see an 8.0 delivering in that fixture in Kulusevski, didn't we? Like, he looks like the standout 8.0 asset. But it's very difficult to say that after 1 game week. Like, of course, Mount and Foden, they'll come into the mix. But what a performance that was from Kulu. Interestingly enough, he was up against Gineppo, who no one really knew was going to play left wing back. They played a back 5, Southampton, and it was Kulu versus Gineppo, and he just rinsed him every time.
Yeah. What do you think about his long-term prospects in that Spurs team, Johnny? Because with Richarlison coming in, there was a bit of rhetoric over the summer with, is he going to get the game time? Is there going to be a bit of rotation there? Listen, Conte can't drop him after that performance at the weekend. And listen, we could talk, I think, for at least 10 or 15 minutes about, frankly, how, I didn't think the Saints were good at all defensively. And certainly I don't think they got out to stop those crosses. Whenever Sessegnon or Kulusevski or anybody that we know can cross a ball in that Spurs team got on it, the Saints really didn't do a very good job of shutting that down. They had all the time and space they needed to put the balls in. And if you see, certainly the first 2 Spurs goals come from exactly those sorts of situations.
Yeah.
But despite that, and by the way, I expect them to come up against a better defence in Chelsea next week. But despite that, you're right, Kulu looked the one. The cross for the Sessegnon goal is so good. What a whip there was on that. Yeah. What do you think of the overall setup at Spurs, though? So Kulu for sure had a great game, but the wing-backs, mate, honestly, I must have tweeted that, Conte's wing-backs with the flames emoji going on. I must have tweeted that 2 or 3 times over the weekend. And we didn't see Perisic, who was our darling over the summer, because it looked like he wasn't quite fit, quite ready for the game. But, Conte, in that system, the wing-backs are going to be gold. And when Perisic is ready to come into the mix over the next couple of weeks, he's going to be straight in my team, I think.
Oh, yeah, I feel like I made a bit of an error on Friday. Like, we heard the Conte quotes. We saw some of the images from training with the bib theory. And it was, there was a few predicting that Spurs 11 based on some training photos. And a lot of the journos were right. And Perisic was left out. Sessegnon got the nod. And we all thought we could see that coming. Yeah, I still left Perisic in my team, even knowing he was very unlikely. Okay. Yeah, even knowing he was very unlikely to start, because I just thought I'll get 30 minutes off the bench where he can still score points, and come game week 2, or maybe it's not till game week 3, he'll be in the team, and I know I'll be using a transfer to try and get him in. And I wasn't completely sold with the other 5.5 or 5.0 assets, and I just thought, save the transfer, keep him in. But knowing Sessegnon scored, and he'll probably be starting again against Chelsea, ideally, I should have made that transfer in game week 3 if I wanted Perisic. But I just know whoever the Spurs wing-backs are, as you say, they're going to be dynamite. And I'm sure first choice, Perisic hasn't come over from Italy to play for Conte to sit on the bench. He's going to be first choice, but we don't quite know when. But again, on the right-hand side, you've got players like Emerson Royale. Like, these are really affordable assets, absolutely smashing it. I mean, I think Perisic will become nailed on the left, but we still don't know on the right, do we? There's a few options. Like, Emerson Royale might have played his way in. What do you reckon?
Well, he did okay, didn't he? He did okay. I'm still not convinced that he's got the best delivery on him, Emerson Royale. Maybe you could point the finger a little bit at him for the first goal in terms of, he looked panicked a little bit as soon as he gets one-on-one in the box. So I'm not sure that Conte sees him. You're right. Right-hand side is up for debate, I think. And actually on the left-hand side, just to finish up that piece of the conversation, I'm hearing a lot of quotes from Conte about the fact that Perisic has come in, yes, to do a job in the first team, of course, but he's there to kind of coach and mentor Sessegnon. Yeah. There's something about Sessegnon that Conte likes, I think. He's obviously very young, he's very malleable, he can learn a lot, I think, from Conte and from Perisic. And who better, by the way, to learn from than Perisic? He's got that sort of mentality that I think Sessegnon I think that Conte wants to get into Sessegnon. So as keen as I am on Perisic, and I think you're right, probably going to be number one choice, I just have this thing in the back of my head about, is Sessegnon the long-term nailed-on heir to the throne on the left-hand side for Spurs? I don't know. I just got that bit of a concern. But right now, you've got the others on the other hand side as well, with Royale, who did have a decent game, except maybe that defensive lapse, I think, on the first goal. It's really hard, I think, to say that any of them are nailed on right now. There is going to be some rotation there. Yeah. And they are going to share minutes. It's difficult to say, to be honest with you.
And come game week 5-6, we know we've got the midweek fixtures coming into play, and Spurs in Europe.
Europe kicks in.
No one asks more of their fullbacks or wingbacks than Conte, which is why we rarely see them play in 90. Like, no matter who he's managing, he brings his fullbacks off at sometimes at 45, often at 60, sometimes at 70. So we're going to get huge rotation. But I still feel like if you can get to 60 minutes with your Conte wingbacks, they're worth the investment, because 60 minutes of a Conte wingback is far better than 90 minutes of most teams' fullbacks, right? And Sessegnon's 4.5 million, Lee. If he does get a good run of games, yeah, you like that a lot. But no, I mean, what we doing with Kane and Son? If you own Kane and Son, should you get twitchy? It's easy for you because you've kind of gone Haaland instead of Kane. But if you're in Sam's boat, for example, or my boat, we own Kane, and I'm guessing